then I can make it available on the screen while you are speaking.
Hello, I'm Anjit Trivedi. I'm from Department of English.
Just a minute. You shared or not?
Yes, sir, I'm shared.
It's still not shared. Now we are seeing Google Classroom page.
Yes, yes, sir. Just now my screen is visible.
Loading.
Okay, sir. Okay, today's presentation is given by me and Khushbu. Today's presentation is given by me and Khushbu. Our topic is comparative literature in India, and overview of its history. Here is a abstract of this article. This article is talking about the overview of the trajectory of the comparative literature in India, focusing on the preliminary on the Department of Jadavpur University, where it began, and some of the extents to Department of the Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies. In University of Delhi, where is later had a new beginning in that the engagement within the Indian literature. In Jadavpur University began with the legacy of the Rabindranath Tagore's speech about the world literature, and with the modern poets translator as its founder. And in abstract, we see the influence and the analogy of the studies, cross culture literary relations, to the focus on the receptions and the transformations. And last few years of that, the comparative literature has taken a new perspective, engaging with the different areas of the culture knowledge, and particular those are related to marginalized space, along with the focus on recovering the new areas of the non-hierarchical literary relations. Now, here is a key point of this article: the beginning, the Indian literature of comparative Indian literature as a comparative literature, centers of comparative literature in studies, rectifying of the area of comparison, the research directions, the interface with the translation studies and cultural studies, the non-hierarchical connectivity. The in the beginning part the we In the beginning part, we see about the Tagore and the Bose idea. The Tagore used the word, talk about the Visva Sahitya, means world literature, and started that the world was generally termed the comparative literature. His idea of the Visva Sahitya was a complex marked by the sense of a community of artists as a work building together. The identifies to that the word of literature. The notion of literature against was deeply embedded on a human relationship, and hence the aesthetic sense was linked with the sense of the human. And Bo's perspective of the comparative literature is the Bose was also well known for the translation of the but the Baudelaire, Haldorian, and that the Kalidas wrote in that the preface of that the translation of a less furious the mal, the translation of that the flower of evil. That is the intentions turning to the French poetry was move away from that the literary of literary of the British, the colonial masters. While his introduction to the translation of the Kalidas Meghdootam, he wrote that he was essential to bring life the literature of ancient times in a particular tradition in order to make a part this contemporary. Now we further move from the Indian literature as a comparative literature. In between, we talk about the three university, the ICLA, Indian Comparative Literature Associated, the Delhi University of the Comparative Indian Literature Association in Delhi, and in Jadavpur University, the comparalistic dealing with that the Indian literature also necessary to had to look at that the interplay between that the mainstream that the popular, the elite, and that the marginalized, and also to some extent so foreground intermedical perspective of that the different form of that existed together, and and that the composite manners, and the particularly in the earlier periods in which textual and the performative tradition exists simultaneously. And the department of the continues developing the teaching materials of the various aspect of the Indian literature from the comparative perspective, beginning from the language origins, manuscripts, cultures, performative traditional, along with the painting, scriptures, and architecture, the history of the print culture, and this question related to the modernity, that comparative literature studied the necessary, and to be the interdisciplinary was the highlighted by the pedagogy of the practicing in the department, and by according to T.S. Satyanand developed the theory of scriptocentric, body centric, and the phonocentric study of the text in the medieval period, leading a number of researchers in the department of continuities, and that the intervenues in that the tradition that would again lead the pluralistic and the epistemologies in that the study of Indian literature and culture. And the third, we see the centers of the comparative literature. In the 1986, a new full-fledged department of the comparative literature was established, and the Veer Narmad South Gujarat University in Surat, where focus was India literature in the Western India. In 1999, the department of the Dravidian comparative literature and philosophy was established in the Dravidian University, Kupam. It must also be the mention that the comparative poetics as core areas of the comparative literature studies, and that the studies dissertations, particularly in the south, was taken up as a center area of the research by the Vishwanath Kaviraj Institute of the Comparative Literature and the Aesthetic in the Orissa. During this period, the National Association of the Comparative Literature came into being. One at the Jadavpur called Indian Comparative Literature Association, and the other in Delhi named the Comparative Indian Literature Association. The two named the two had the merged in the 1992. The Comparative Literature Association of the India was formed, which today has more than the thousand of the members. In early years of the association, and the large number of the creative writers, and the perspective in that the conferences, along with that the academic and the researcher, each enriching horizon and the vision of the other. And here's a rectification of the area of comparison. Here's some example of in the this part. The along with that, the Indian literature of that the Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the 100 years of solitude became a part of the syllabus, of which few other texts in Latin America literature, and then literature from African countries were included. As for the other areas of studies components, the department today hosts the Center of African, Latin American, and the Canadian studies, where some of the researcher work. The annual seminars are organized. A few like that the present author are the opinion that given the relatively small number of the policy, and in that the attention from some of the key challenges in the comparative literature studies in India, the namely that the systematically the amalgamation of the data related and the Indian context and the analysis from the comparative perspective, and so perhaps the mapping of the intercultural relations with that among India's neighborhood in countries. The bonds and the woodworks were very popular in romanticism. They felt that they are the romanticism was the marked by inner strength and the serenity. The much of texts about that the angst of the romantic poet was viewed negatively. The love of that the sincerity and health went back the classical period and seems as an important value in the tradition. Now, further presentation, I would like to call Khushbu.
Delivered on the subject when he was invited by National Council of European of Education in 1907. But the idea of comparative literature suggested by Das, a practicing comparatist, is different from the idea expressed by Tagore.
So I have a question that which types of area are covered by comparative literature?
Yes, Chignex, the comparative literature covers the area of influence, analogy, thematology, translation study, and the art, the cultural arts, and within the translation studies, the comparative literature is not comparative study is not possible. Thank you.